record. Hey, welcome everyone to this month's Intentional Success webinar. Today, we're going to talk about how to finally achieve balance in your business. And I'm going to talk, I won't dwell on it too much, but there's so much fear-based business thinking that goes on in our industry. And it's one of the things I really want to help you undo with the concept of scalability. So I'm looking forward to talking to you about this. I'm very excited. I am, for you, those of you who don't know me, I'm Tom Stimson. I'm a business consultant. I've been in the live events industry for 40 years. I've done most of your jobs. I sold, I managed, I created processes and developed software, worked at a live events company. So I'm very familiar with this, but since 2006, I've been doing business consulting, and this is all I do. I work almost exclusively with owners and management teams to help them get where it is that they want to go. And one of the things I do is deliver workshops. There's an old picture from Jumpstart pre-pandemic, back in the day, in the before times, as we say. So new folks, welcome. This is being recorded. I always double check right now to make sure I did indeed do that. And yes, it is recording. So this is being recorded. It'll get posted later today. You'll get an email that reminds you of where to find that link. It's the same spot every month, but always handy for you to be able to just click on that and go find that, share it with others, right? We use the Q&A box for questions. Hey, tell us where you're watching from in the chat. Just say hello to everybody. I don't always get to see the chat during the webinar, but if you ask a question, I will get to it in the Q&A. So just post something there at any time. I'll pause if it's the right time to answer that question. All right, everybody got it? Awesome, great. Let's get going. So, how to finally achieve balance in your business. Now, why am I doing? I always have a reason for doing these webinars. So, why this particular webinar at this time? I am speaking more and more and almost exclusively about scalable businesses and scalable processes. I'm very excited that I think after being in the business for 40 years, I've finally, with the help of my clients, have uncovered a business model that is a franchisable model that will help us be profitable all the time. Now, scalability, as many of you have already heard me talk about, is not about extremes, right? This is not about outsourcing everything and not having any employees. And this is not about insourcing everything. It's about finding that happy medium in there. Balance is, as a martial artist, a longtime instructor, you don't find your balance until you let go of things. So if you're trying to balance while you're holding on to a chair or a wall or something, you're not actually balancing, and you won't know what it is that is weak, that is keeping you from balancing, until you actually let go, right? And the same thing kind of applies in business. So I'll talk a little bit about that today. And when we can't let go, we don't feel comfortable letting go, that will tell us where the weakness in our business is, which is the thing that we've got to shore up, which in the scalable system, we address everything all the time. We're going to catch it. We're going to fix it. We're going to put some energy into it so that you can achieve that balance. And then once you're in balance, when anything happens that doesn't seem right, I'm going to give you some tools for quickly checking the health so you can diagnose what's going on. So that's what this webinar is all about today. So scalability, what the heck is scalability, Tom? Okay, scalability is the business model where your overhead expenses, the costs that you incur every single month, are not designed to subsidize the direct costs when you do a job. So that job cost, that direct cost, the inside labor, if we're using overhead to supplement shows, then we're using overhead to subsidize. And what it means is that when you have no work, you've got extra overhead. When you do have work, you're shortchanging your overhead, which has a very important function. So we want to make sure that we provide for the things that we need to have to sell profitably, grow the business, improve our processes all the time. We can't just steal those resources and throw them on a show because we think we're saving a few dollars, because I can show you the math. It doesn't work. Matter of fact, it drives our margins down. So we want to use our overhead correctly. And now, and what do we get for this, right? Why is this so important? And, we learned this. This is part of what the pandemic taught us. We can have higher profit, less stress, which is a huge deal for many of you, more fun, which I'm in for the fun, but there's a catch. Okay. Scalability makes great business sense, but it challenges decades of tradition. Things that have been fundamentally taught to us, best practices, some of these things don't work, right? And I address those things because I've been teaching them for years. I get this. Now, when I talk about scalability, I often talk about sales planning and procurement. This is your overhead team. These are the people, you know, who sell the jobs, plan the jobs, make sure that you've got all the suppliers lined up to do the work, because there's always outside suppliers, no matter how much staff you have, how much gear you own. You've always got to do some buying, some procurement, right? We never use these people as direct labor. They have a full-time job, and that's a job that you need all year, all the time, right? Now, I do put that asterisk in there because when you're moving towards a more scalable model, when you're trying to fix the business process errors that we've introduced over time through no fault of your own, you're going to break the rule. But that's part of getting to that balance point. Now, it's usually about this time that people go, well, Tom, we're seasonal, right? I got to have technicians on staff for when we're busy, because otherwise I can't find technicians, and we have to own gear. Otherwise, our job cost goes up when we're in busy months. I got a question for you. It's like, this is a seasonal industry. There's just no doubt about it. I've been doing this for 40 years. I've never found a solution for seasonality. Have you? Has anybody found it? I mean, there's some things you can do. You can kind of diversify the types of shows you do. Say, hey, we're a corporate company, but in the summer we have to do festivals. But then somebody goes, I'm not doing festivals. I don't want my gear being drugged through the mud. Okay, I get it. It's hard to diversify, particularly if you're good at something and as you're passionate about what it is you want to do, but it's not, that work isn't there every month. Now, sometimes we repurpose a team for another line of business. I've worked with clients who have a manufacturing group where they do permanent installations. You know what? That doesn't work either, because that work will also stack on you. No matter how you try and solve seasonality, you're always left with an undesirable option. So great, Tom. Thanks for telling us that. But there's a solution to this. And this is that aha moment when we look at what happened during the pandemic. When you take your numbers to the extreme, like from we're doing 8 million bucks a year to zero, all of a sudden you see how things work very, very, very quickly. So the solution to seasonality, brace yourselves, is to turn down work during peak demand. Okay. If your busy months have to make up for your slow ones, then you're using your windfall revenue, those extra big months, to stay afloat. Scalable means that you design your business to be profitable all the time. So scalable companies don't need to chase revenue. They don't need to stack on work in the busy months, because they don't need to keep excess direct resources in their overhead. That means that they can turn down work and remain profitable. So if you are focused on how many people you need and how much gear you need based on how busy you are 1 or 2 months out of the year, you're going to be out of balance. And you say, oh, well, Tom, we don't really do that. We kind of look at the middle months and we gear up for that. I get that. That's fine. That's a better choice. Okay. But it's still not scalable. Look, what we're talking about is balance. Okay. Extreme insourcing means we never outsource, or we almost never outsource. I don't think anybody ever gets to the point where they're infinitely never outsourcing. But sometimes we have extreme insourcing, and we do everything we can to avoid outsourcing, and we control our costs that way. Our job costs look great because we didn't have to hire anything outside, but our P&L doesn't look good because we have this overhead that we're paying for all year during our seasonal ups and downs. Now, extreme outsourcing, the other end of the spectrum, is we got no one on staff, right? It's the owner, and he's only working when the phone rings, right? And everything gets outsourced. Now, those are extremes. So we don't need to talk about extremes. We're going to talk about the middle of this chart, which is where your balance point is. So you're somewhere in between these 2 points. And what works for you may not be what works for another company. But whatever that balance is, you need the right process and organizational structure to do consistently good work and be able to add revenue, okay, and increase your net profit when you do it, rather than adding revenue and then your net profit starts to shrink as a percentage of revenue. So here's the old model, right? Just to make clear about where we're moving from. Not all of you are set up this way, but this is the tradition. The old model is that if you build the company and you have everything, you can sell at the best price. Customers want to work with you because they know they're getting the best deal because you're not having to outsource. You own all the gear. You have the entire show team on staff. They prep the show. They drive the trucks. They set up and run the show. They bring it back to the shop. They hope somebody else puts it away. And when you're busy, no one has time to sell or plan the next show because you got salespeople out on a show site making sure everything goes okay. There's nobody left in the shop to plan next week's jobs. All of a sudden, you're trying to figure out how you're going to get shows prepped when your crew has been working 10 days straight, right? But this is how we've done it. And many of us have survived and been relatively successful doing this. But each job in this process, when you're busy through the busy season, each job becomes successively less prepared, less successful. And then you start praying for downtime so that you can recover, take a break, take a breather, fix a few things, and get ready for the next run. This helps perpetuate seasonality because downtime is now vital to your system. What business owner starts a business, invests millions of dollars in technology, hires people, and hopes that there's 3 or 4 months out of the year where nobody wants to use them? It's insane. Okay. But that's what many folks have evolved into. So in the old model, you got, half the year, 6, 7 busy months, 5 or 6 slow months. You got that one big show in October, which is where all the profit was made up for the 5 or 6 months where you barely broke even or lost money. You spend all of your time and energy trying to fit your inventory and staff to every single job because, well, you sold it that way and you sold it assuming it was available. And now you're fighting every urge to outsource to make your life easier because it will cost too much money. And then you have these great plans to do all this project work in downtime. We're going to fix our product codes and rebuild these racks and do this training. And instead, because you were so busy before downtime, nothing's ready. And you spend all your downtime talking about the things that you should have been doing before the downtime actually happened, right? And here's the thing about downtime that everybody forgets. That's when everybody takes vacation. How are you going to get any work done? Half the team's gone. So we do some crazy things, and I've been in the middle of it. I understand it. This has all led, and forgive me for repeating myself, to the death spiral. So our industry death spiral 2019, where as an industry, we have too much supply, not enough demand. Okay. Everybody was geared up for the busy months. Okay. We have resources duplicated across all production companies. Everybody on this call had more people and more equipment than they needed year round. Okay. Too much staff, too much gear. And all that excess supply just drove prices down because now you're selling from fear. Now it's like, oh, well, we're not as busy in October. We need every job we can get. We need every job that comes our way. So now we're selling on price. Fear-based selling made it worse because that also drives margins down. If you're going to sell on price, they're going, I wonder if those guys I talked to yesterday want to lower their price too. And look where we are, 2019, record-breaking year for everybody, worst profits we've ever seen. So we learned some lessons from the pandemic smackdown, and I'm going to segue into telling you about balance from this. What we learned is that the how is not important anymore. I grew up in an era when I was selling in the 90s, it was all about the equipment, all about the brand names. It had to say Sony, it had to say Barco, it had to say Grass Valley, or you wouldn't get the gig. You had to tell people how you were going to do it. None of that mattered in the pandemic. Our buyers changed, our solutions changed. We were doing streaming. We found out as you moved from 60 employees to 5 employees that you could sell a lot of business with those 5 employees, outsource, bring back your furloughed employees to run those shows, be extremely profitable. The shows ran well. You had plenty of resources to plan them. It was great. You learned that pre-production has a huge amount of value that buyers are willing to pay for. They see the importance of it. We can charge for that stuff that we thought was free, right? We learned that supply chain affects costs, right? So we had to pay more attention to pricing. We can't be selling labor at 2019 rates when what we're selling it at is now just below what our current cost is. Huge wake up call on all of this. Economics matter, right? Supply chain matters. Your replacement cost matters. And the conclusion from all this is we've got to disconnect from that old school. So my solution to this is this balanced model that I'm trying to help you with, right? In balance, every financial forecast, and you do need financial forecasts, should have a worst case and a most likely scenario, not a best case scenario. Best case scenarios don't matter at all. Worst case scenarios are probably the most important. So if you're looking at your financial forecast, your revenue forecast, you want to model your business on the worst case scenario, and you want that business to make money. So your internal direct costs should not exceed the expected demand of your worst case scenario. That's your first pass at balance. Your second pass at balance might tell you that you need even less than that. Because if you're really well balanced and you've got this down, your slowest month of the year, you should still need to outsource labor, maybe even rent equipment, right? Because that means you don't have too much stuff. Now, your planning capacity, okay, must stay ahead of your sales capacity, right? So you need a core group of people who are always planning as far ahead as you can. It is August. If you've got Q1 business that you know you're going to do and you haven't fully crewed those shows and lined up your labor subcontractors for your stagehands, get on it now. Okay, that's what planning does. You need to be working on this stuff all the time. Get as far ahead as you can. Deepen your outsource bench. Find more people, use more people. Don't send all your work to one or two contractors or one or two favorite equipment suppliers. Spread it around because you need a deep bench. In balanced companies, there is no excuse for running out of resources, right? So developing resources is a full-time job. You also have to stay connected to your cost basis, okay? If you will learn to build estimates based on cost and add margin to it, cost-based estimates are never wrong. They can't be wrong. All you can do is lie to yourself by over-delivering, not putting something in the quote and then giving it anyway is just over-delivery. So if you actually put together the quote and the scope of work based on cost, I don't care what margin you add to it. You're going to make money, okay? And you're going to make the money that you expected to because that's what your margin is. So pricing to win the job is not better than pricing to make money. And the only way to know if you're going to make money is if you completely understand your costs. So why is this important? Owners sign my check, right? I'm a business consultant. You know, the person who hires me has needs, right? They want their cash flow to be good. They want to make a profit. They want to see the business grow. They want to see satisfaction from their customers and their employees, and they want to see harmony in the team. They want things to work. They want you to get along. They don't need conflict. Okay. Anything that keeps them up at night or makes them not want to come to the office, that's got to go away. So cash flow, profit, growth, satisfaction, harmony is what owners want. Scalable process will help get us there. Balance in business processes is what gets us to that sweet spot that will make owners happy. And I don't care if it's an independent owner or a group of owners or your private equity group, all of this actually matters to them. So in this model, sales and planning focus on the deliverables. They eliminate scope creep by selling what they said they were going to sell, which preserves margins. And we always agree on what the quality is going to be, because planning and procurement will preserve that quality at the best cost, not the lowest cost, the best cost, so that quality comes first, right? And procurement and sales have to stay connected, because procurement, purchasing, is going to stay connected to cost. And if costs change, and sometimes they change really quickly, we have to feed that information back to sales. And so we have a constant feedback loop between these three spheres, right? And that's very important. If your entire team is out doing shows and you don't have sales, planning, and procurement available for future work, okay, how are you going to grow your business? You're limited by how many shows you do. You have one big show, you may not have anything for the next 3 months because you couldn't work on it. So these spheres, when we're looking at balance, I want to keep these spheres in balance. And if you've heard me talk about this before, there's an admin sphere that goes around all of these things that supports everything, right? So each of these spheres needs a scorecard, right? For you to keep track of your balance. If something's out of balance, you need to know right where to look and what questions to ask, okay? Balance isn't just about a feeling. We can quantify and qualify balance in our business, right? The selling sphere. Remember, selling is not just salespeople. It's marketing, it's business development, it's account management, it's production design, estimating. That's the team that's in selling, right? You may have salespeople who can do their own estimates, right? Is operations happy with what they're getting? If they're not, you need to put some technical knowledge and some estimating knowledge, some production management knowledge onto the sales team, so that the output of sales is always a clear deliverable. So clear deliverable to right customers at the right price with an understandable scope of work, okay? The internal customer for the scope of work is planning, right? If planning is not happy, we need to go back to sales and figure out what's going on, okay? The planning sphere is maintaining quality. Okay. If you see any quality issues, go to planning. Is all the planning being centralized, or did silos crop up? Did somebody go rogue? Did a salesperson hold on to a job too long and walk it through the system? Did a project manager step in too early and bypass centralized planning? Are the resources being optimized wisely, or did we cut corners to optimize the resource, which would not be optimal now, would it? And do we have clear communication? So a lot of failures in quality are simply from a lack of communications or improper communications. Planning is all about communicating, because if we make a plan, we have to be able to communicate it so that execution can happen. Now, procurement or purchasing, which is technically part of the planning sphere, if you put planning and procurement together, it's operations, right? The procurement sphere is about optimizing the cost. Okay, you need that deep resource pool I talked about. Okay, if we're having trouble finding resources, I'm going straight to procurement and say, where's your resource pool? What are we doing about this? This cannot happen. Procurement has to document everything because it's performing a financial function, purchase orders, okay, documenting suppliers, plus recruiting suppliers. You almost need a CRM for procurement so we can keep track of the businesses that we want to do business with, so that we can increase our reach into the supply chain. Okay? And then procurement also has to update cost data. So if we ever find ourselves, well, why did this cost so much? Well, the price has gone up. Well, did you tell sales? Well, no, or I told them and they got grumpy about it. Okay. We can find, when we start having issues, we know where to look. Here's where the information is. Okay? Now, admin, what's admin? Well, admin is finance, it's HR, it's IT. It is purchasing for capital purchases and supply purchases within the organization, as opposed to show purchases, which we can put over in the procurement group or the planning group. So the admin sphere is about data, it's about support, and it's about controls. we have to work inside some lines. We got to get our expense reports done. That's admin, right? And from admin, because finance is in there, I can get a reliable forecast for net profit and cash flow. At any given time, I should be able to look at a projection through the end of the year based on our revenue expectations, our existing overhead, our cost of goods sold, and extrapolate what my net profit is at the end of the year. I should be able to do the same thing for cash flow. Okay. If you've got more than 10 employees and you can't do this, okay, you need to fix this, or you're not going to be able to grow. You're not going to be able to work on your scalability, right? Smaller companies, this is a little bit more challenging, but on the other hand, it's not hard to do. So if all you have is a bookkeeper and you're the owner and you got 4 employees, you can already do this. You've already do this. Now, admin allows the teams to focus on their jobs. If your team is having to deal with stuff that's not related to their core competency or their role, it might be a failure in admin. Okay. If we're struggling with HR stuff, reviews, payroll issues, if that's not being handled, that's a distraction for your employees. So it is just as important for admin to work so that everybody else can keep doing their job and focus on their job and not be distracted. All right. So these are some quick and easy checkpoints on this. Now, financially, I can put key performance indicators. I can build a dashboard for a scalable company and almost nothing flat, compared to the old model where it was very difficult to find actionable key performance indicators. So what's an actionable KPI? When I look at a report, I look at a P&L, I'm going to pull some key performance indicators out there, which are just comparisons. For instance, the comparison of labor income to direct labor expense, very important key performance indicator. Another important KPI is the ratio of labor revenue to equipment revenue to expense revenue. There's not an ideal number, but there is a trending number that's important for your business. And if you see those numbers start to move, it might be an indication that something has slipped in your pricing or your approach or your scope of work or your scope creep. The most obvious KPI is gross profit, which is a correlation to cost of goods sold. If your gross profit goes down, I mean, your cost of goods sold went up. What do you do about it? Anytime a KPI goes off track or looks like it might be trending in the wrong way, the first thing we do is we verify the data. I sit through lots of reporting meetings, management meetings, when we're looking at the P&L for last month, only to find that it's so full of errors, we can't actually do anything with it. So we need to look at that first, make sure that the data is correct, make sure that we don't have any data entry errors, we don't have any coding mistakes, that we've already checked it for weird stuff, so that now if I have an anomaly, okay, I can drill down into it. If cost of goods sold is running up as a percent of revenue, I need to check pricing. I also need to check costs. If my costs didn't go up, but my pricing wasn't being maintained, my margins weren't being maintained, that tells me where I need to put energy. I need to check over delivery, right? If we're delivering something that wasn't in the scope of work, or we weren't comfortable asking the client to pay the extra money, we need to review the decision tree, right? And always checking costs is reviewing the purchasing process, right? Are we asking the right questions? If we don't get the price with the cost that we expect from the first vendor, are we going to the second and the third vendor? Little things like that. So we have a roadmap anytime a KPI seems a little bit off base. Now, what's the upside of all of this, right? When your spheres are in balance, okay, you, the owner, and if you're a larger company, your executive team can look away from the tactics, okay? You can work on bigger issues. You can monitor the results because you're getting actionable reports without actually micromanaging the business, okay? What's this going to allow you to do? It's going to allow you to reach out to better marketplaces, new clientele, retain customers, retain employees, work on your finances, get that exit strategy sorted out. There's so many things that you could be doing with your time that are much more important than micromanaging, whether purchasing, called the vendor that you wanted them to call. So some conclusions from all this, and then I've got a mess of announcements and we'll do some Q&A. Look, maintaining the balance that's really important. This the benefit of the scalability model does require constant check-ins. You've got to stay plugged in to the spheres. The spheres are a feedback loop. They need data. You need to see it moving through there. That's worth monitoring to make sure that that communication is always going on. We have also learned that if you rely on insourcing, you are going to fail at outsourcing. If your first choice is to insource, outsourcing is always going to get short shrift. It's going to be difficult for you. You've got to embrace outsourcing at whatever level of balance makes sense for you, but you need to outsource first and then use your insource. We can't predict what buyers will need. Therefore, it's going to make sense to outsource more than insource because I don't know that I'm going to need all of my insourcing, right? The other thing we learned from this, because we are going to turn down work when we're super busy, is that we're going to learn that we don't want to chase shows. We're not chasing RFPs. We want to chase buyers. Buyers are more valuable to you than an individual job. That windfall job in October may be great. It may throw a bunch of money, throw a bunch of cash at your business. Okay. But you always need to support what your buyers, your target customers need when they need it. And one of the advantages of turning down work when you're busy is that you always have a little bit more capacity so that when your best customer comes in at the last minute, like they always do, and says, I need this, you can say yes, right? You may be a little bit deep into your talent pool, but maybe you've got an employee left that you can shift around and support them, right? And taking care of customers is probably more important than grabbing one more show to make up for slow months. Change your model, change your thinking. So short content today. Do post some questions. I see a couple here already. Do post some questions, but let me make a few announcements. First big announcement. If you're new to me, you don't know about Jumpstart. But from 2016 to 2019, I did Jumpstart workshops on various topics: sales, marketing, management, strategy, operations. We had a lot of fun. We made a lot of friends. Hundreds of people went through these programs. We are bringing them back. Obviously, they had to go on hold during the pandemic, but people have been asking for them for a year and a half. So we're finally bringing back Jumpstart. We're going to have a Jumpstart management on November 9th here in Dallas, where I'm located. This is designed for management teams or whoever the key people are in your organization. It could be a key salesperson, and you should have at least one salesperson on your team here. Yes, we are going to focus on intentional scalability. Yes, it is expensive, but stay tuned, right? And there are group rates available. So I'm encouraging teams to come. I've already got commitments from folks who are bringing 5 to 6 people. So I have group rates available for that. Now, let's talk a little bit about what you can expect from Jumpstart. This is a full day program. We're packed. We're going to have breakfast at 8, and we're going to stop for cocktails at 5:30 and eat some food and have some good networking time. So it's a full day program. We have 9 breakout sessions scheduled, including plus a couple of keynotes. So I will be doing a couple of presentations. We've got some guest presenters, and we've got 9 specialized breakouts in 3 rotations, which means to attend every single breakout, you would have to bring 3 people. Great networking opportunities. Probably, most people say, hey, the content was great. We love you, Tom, but I was so glad to meet all those folks. Get outside of your bubble. Don't discount the value of the networking for you and your team. You're not going to find anything else like this in our industry. It's great food, fun atmosphere. You're not going to have to eat any flat meat, and I guarantee that we'll be baking at breakfast. Now, you can learn a bit more about it by going to trstimpson.com/jumpstart, hit the QR code, yada, yada, yada. You'll get some emails about this on Friday as well. But you right now, the people on this call are hearing something that no one else has heard other than my clients. There's a super early bird special. This is the lowest price you can possibly get. It's available for a short time. When the public announcement goes out for this next week, this will be gone. So if this looks like something that you need to attend, get in there and buy some seats right now. You're not going to get a better price. I've already had some folks sign up for this. Limited number of seats. When they're gone, right? Now, that's too. Let me tell you, this this is a cool event. This is a labor of love. This is one of my favorite things to do, is to get a bunch of folks together and watch you guys interact and interact with the content and share and network and everything. So check out the website, learn more about it. You can click on the registration from there. It'll take you over to the registration site where you can buy your seats online. Remember, there is a group rate, but right now you're better off with the early bird special. So early bird is less money than the group rate. So stick with that. But there will be a group rate available next week for those of you who want to bring more folks. But right now, if you want to bring 5 folks, buy 5 early birds because that's your best deal. If you got any questions about that, please feel free to post them in the Q&A as well. But I'm very excited about this. You're going to see, I know I probably send out a lot of emails, but honestly, I try to put something valuable and useful for you in every single one, and you will see promos about this. I've got a great series of papers and essays that are, the precursor for the next book. I look forward to you reading them. It'll help you dive deeper in some of the issues behind scalability. Now, for those of you who just like to listen to stuff, I've got a podcast. Please go check it out. Please subscribe. And if you do, rate it, comment it, and send me your ideas. But whatever you listen to it on, if you could rate and comment, it would be greatly appreciated. It'll help more folks find it. Intentional Success Network. For instance, this webinar, when it's done, will get posted there. Intentionalsuccess.biz is kind of the archive of all of my content. And believe me, there's tons of it, right? So if you want to go back and find some things, this is where it is, including past webinars. This webinar will be posted on my website later today. It's up there for a month. Then it goes to live on forever at Intentional Success Network. So get in there, subscribe, wander around a little bit. It's a great way to find some things that you've forgotten about. Now, more about me, business consultant, right? The primary thing that I do, my biggest value, if I'm using it at my highest and best use on any given day, I'm doing an assessment of a business. I'm helping you understand where you're at and what can you do with that. That leads into strategy and road mapping. So if I understand your goals and I understand where you are, I can help you draw a roadmap, adopt the right strategy to help you get there so that you can get the kind of success that you want. And I'm going to steer you towards balance along the way. So as long as you need advice as you go through the implementation, I'm available to you. That's what I do. That's my consulting practice. We also run some peer groups. I've got some openings in a current peer group. I have some more peer groups starting at the end of the year. There's one-on-one coaching available for me and some of my partners. Just go to my website, click on Let's Talk. I'm happy to chat about it. Happy to meet you. Never feel like you're wasting my time by reaching out and having a conversation with me, because I do really enjoy talking with all of you. Next webinar. Okay. The keys to managing a scalable live events business. Now, in the scalable world, we do a lot of things differently. Our emphasis on things shift. We have to let go of some old ideas. I want to go over the 5 most important differences to help you better understand what this model is like. You can start to adopt the mindset and see the value in it, but how is that going to change what you do on any given day? And I want to dive into a few of those things. And obviously, the Jumpstart Workshop is about diving deeper into these topics. So, summary. So remember, why is this all better? Sales planning and procurement have no show responsibilities. You're always going to be focused on future work, right? You're going to fill your pipeline. And by filling your pipeline, you're able to turn down work. That's what my marketing book is all about. Demand, how to turn down better work. So if you're more focused, if you put the right energy into sales, then you're going to have more work. You put the right energy into planning, you're going to increase your capacity. You put the right energy into procurement, you're going to continue to make money. All of these things are connected. In this model, your company is always selling, it's always planning, it's always preparing, which means you're going to be less reactive, you're going to be less scared, okay? And you're going to be less unhappy, believe me. In this model, job cost is very consistent. I'll be honest with you. You're going to increase your job cost. You're going to dramatically lower your overhead. The first model, the first pass with most of my clients, we might increase their cost of goods sold by 5%. We decrease their overhead by 10 or 18%. Okay. That's a huge net increase in profit. At the same time, we're making more money. We're doing it with less stress, less concern, less reactive, less scared. Now, ultimately, if you're a couple years into the program and you're working out the bugs, I have clients that are doing 10 times more profit than they were doing in 2019. Right? It is out there, and you're going to retain your staff, your best staff, at higher wages. There's so many advantages to this. Well, it would take me an entire workshop to explain it to you. So, hey, we got plenty of time for questions here, and please drop those in the Q&A as you're going along. Anything you want to ask about at all. It doesn't have to be about this webinar. You know how I am. I'm going to kill this screen share so that you can see my smiling face. Sorry. And let's look at the questions. Let me put this over here where I can see it. Really, guys, questions on anything at all. So I'm going to start off with somebody, a regular listener. Last webinar, you talked about upgrading your team. Are companies actually replacing people? I have guys that have been with me for 18 years. Okay. Thank you. That's a good question. Look, there is something about this model that's going to require you to upgrade your team, but that doesn't necessarily mean you need to replace people. Rarely have I seen folks replaced, and with one exception, and that's usually finance, bookkeepers, controllers, because we need a higher level of admin, and that's generally where I find the most weakness. But for your core team, your sales, your operations folks, your production managers, project managers, there's a spot for all of them. Mostly, we need to move people into roles that reflect their highest and best use. We need to populate the planning team with anchor people. I see the world as show people and back office people. And I love to have experienced show people embrace back office roles. I'm one of those people. I did shows for years, right? And then I moved into that back office job where I managed sales and operations, developed processes, because that really was my highest and best use. I was great at running crews, but I definitely wasn't a great show technician, right? I wasn't a talented technical person. I was just a good operator. So I was one of those guys, went from a show guy to an office guy. You have some people that need to do that. Put people where their abilities are best. So don't be concerned about having to replace people. Be concerned about putting them in the right place. And trust me, you have people who want to get off the road, and you want to have people who want to be on the road more, or want to be on show site more. So I don't see a model where I have people who spend part of their time back office and part of their time on shows. That doesn't work for me. There's always exceptions, right? Another question. Keep them coming, guys. We got plenty of time. So I only have 5 employees and 4 work on shows when we have them. When we are slow, I cut hours. What else is there to do? Okay. So what I'm hearing is that you're already using your team on demand, right? If you can cut hours, it sounds to me that you're a little bit over invested in direct labor. In other words, these aren't really full-time people if you're constantly cutting their hours, and they're only important if you sold something. That means they're all direct labor. So you're using them correctly, right? Um, but what's missing are the anchor roles, because now I have one person with 5 employees, 4 of them work on shows. I'm sure the other person is admin of some sort. We got one person who doesn't have enough support for selling, planning, and procurement. So there's probably somebody on those four out of those 4 people that might need to become back office. And sales and planning is a great place to figure out where to put them. So how much more business could you find and execute successfully if you had a different mix of people? Okay. This is when owners need to take a look at themselves and ask what is their highest and best use. And if your highest and best use is going out and mixing sound on a show, then you need to hire somebody to run your business for you, which is probably not ideal, right? So think about where you need to fit in, and then we can work from there. But too much direct labor is what I'm seeing here. You need to build some office so that you can work on future business all of the time. Good question. Thank you for asking that. Oh, Bill, okay, you asked an interesting question about how California AV companies are dealing with the California DMV CARB regulations for their trucks and generators. Did you know as of this week they will be requiring diesel smog testing 4 times a year? Great question, Bill. Drop that into chat and see if anybody on here has anything on that. I got nothing. I got nothing for you, but thanks for asking. More questions, please, that don't have to do with California laws, because I can barely keep up with SB5. Excuse me. All right. This question is, my best salesperson doesn't use our pricing system, and we generally don't know what he has sold until he tells us. It frustrates ops, and it seems like we just add gear without any way to check if the customer is paying for it. Well, there's not a question mark here, but I understand what the question is. What the heck do you do about this? So the scalable answer on this is that when we look at a sales sphere, there are many different kinds of sellers, right? Not everybody who's closing the deal, account management, account executive, customer service rep, are the same kinds of sellers. We have to support that team with marketing, business development, and production design and estimating. Most rogue salespeople, what you're describing is what I call a rogue salesperson. They thrive on the independence of that. There's a lot of pride, maybe a little bit of ego mixed into there. But if we add a resource to the sales organization, the selling organization, that converts sales orders into operational orders, then sales will fulfill its mission of delivering a serviceable scope of work to planning. Now, what most companies do is the order finally gets put into the system, and then planning looks at it and go, well, man, I'm going to have to scrub this. I got to ask a million questions. We have to have production meetings because it's incomplete. And now there's this constant back and forth with the salesperson who thinks they finished their job, but ops can't really proceed. Putting somebody else in that group for the selling team to help make sure that we are conveying the scope of work to the planning group or the ops group is important. It makes a huge difference. One of those people that is direct labor now doing project management or production management probably needs to be on the selling team. If they are customer facing, if they can talk to customers, if they can do estimates, if they understand the entire show process, all of your scopes of work are going to be solid. Okay. Your budget builds are going to be solid. Okay. You'll have better proposals because we'll have more honest numbers and we'll understand what we're doing. And when the job does convert, it's much easier for it to go to your planning group, who, by the way, are already looking at it. They're not waiting for it to confirm because they're planners, right? That will pull it all together. So I've never been able to change a rogue salesperson. I have been able to put people at their disposal that makes it easier for them to share information in the way that they want to. And we can, if I was in that production manager position and the sales group, I would be listening, extracting information, and I would be converting it into an operational order using operational language. which is what the salesperson is struggling to do. Even though they may know exactly what they're selling, they're probably not doing a good job of communicating, which is a huge part of all of this. All right. More questions? Anyone? Bueller. All right. Oh, thanks, John, for coming to my rescue here. Our biggest customers are producers / AV companies that don't own gear. Okay, agencies, right? They are all pushing to have pricing that is like what they sold when they worked at AV companies pre-pandemic as sales. How do we get these customers to recognize that there is value in the quality we provide them when their approach is very transactional and they can always find someone to do it cheaper, thus putting strong downward pressure on our pricing and our margins? Okay, great. Well, this is a classic problem. So excellent question. So you will have some portion of your business will have transactional buyers. If your business model relies on transactional buyers, and some models do, if you're doing a lot of agency work, agencies are the most price sensitive buyers there are in our system, right? They're always looking at that. There are different ways to convey pricing to them so that we don't get caught into a pricing vortex. One of the most common things we do is bundle stuff that can't be unbundled, right? My famous example, and I've been using it for 25 years now, is that sound system for 500 people. So that's whatever racks and stacks it takes to do the sound for an audience of 500 people in whatever environment it is. And the agency buyers are going to go, what's that included? And you're going to say everything it takes. I don't know yet. We're not going to design it until you give me the job. But the fact is, it's got what you need. You've got front fill, you got subwoofers, we got speakers. It's not going to change because we're going to do it this way or that way. I'm giving you a bundled price that reduces negotiating. So the last thing you want to do is put in a 300-foot fiber optic snake, and the client goes, well, we only have 150 feet and I don't need fiber optic, just give me an analog snake. Who wants to have those conversations? Take those choices off the table, okay, and say, here's what we send, here's what's included, and now you can bundle pricing for things. Go back and find my webinar on selling value. I talk about baseline systems. So baseline systems are the non-negotiable systems that you put into a proposal. If the client comes to you and says, hey, we got 500 salespeople at an awards banquet, it's a one-day event, this is not hard, right? We're all of you just did the quote in your head, right? It's 2 screens, it's some lighting, some flash and trash, a couple of wireless microphones, a couple of movers. This is not complicated. We're going to throw some cameras up there, do some IMAG, record it if they want to, but those are extras. So the baseline is I need sound, I need screens, I need lights, and here's the minimum it takes to do that job. Everything else is an enhancement. So quit negotiating the baseline. Draw them over into the enhancements. It'll make it much easier. Now, as you say in your follow-up, RFP gear is a list they want line item pricing. We have to translate it, right? You have to translate it into what you do. How do we convert them to not expect that? You have to tell them that's not how I do it, right? I can't give you that. I can't fill out your sheet. Now, are you going to lose some business? Yeah, there are some buyers out there that this is a problem with. My famous story I tell is did shows for years for a big insurance company. They had an institutional buyer. He sent out a spreadsheet for every job, and he wanted you to fill in those items, and I wouldn't do it. I said, John, I'm sorry, I'm not doing this, right? I can do this job for you. It's $35,000. Well, I need the pricing. I said, you can put any price you want on your spreadsheet. I'm not going to do it. Now, eventually I found a salesperson who was more patient than I was, and he filled it out, but we still sold it to him for $35,000, right? Why? The question you need to ask them is, why is this important to them? Okay. What is their client going to do if they know that your camera chain is $1,500 versus somebody else's $750? What are they going to do with that information? Right. So a lot of this is understanding your customer, not being so willing to cave, and say, and be confident, saying, hey, this is how we do things. There's nothing in here that's negotiable. Well, how much is it per speaker? I don't know. I don't price speakers. I don't have a price for speaker. I have a price for a sound system. Who needs a speaker? Okay. So I think part of this is sales management. And I know that probably wasn't the most satisfying answer because it is a frustrating piece, but this is something we have to deal with. So thanks for bringing it up, by the way. That was good stuff. All right. I think we've run out of questions. All right. So yeah, quick reminder. Yeah, Jumpstart. I hope you'll take a look at it. We definitely would love to see you there. And I'm going to put that up on the screen one more time because, you know, technology, why the heck not? And if you have any questions about it, just shoot me an email, schedule a call with me. Happy to talk with you about who you need to bring on your team. Or if you feel like you need to show up by yourself, talk to me about that. And let's see if we can't help you make a better choice in that, because this really works better. I've done this for a long time. The more of your team that you have there, the more people that absorb and process this, the more you get out of it. And it means that you can extend your networking, because if there's 3 of you there, you're networking 9 times as many people. So, and you're going to get to cover all the breakout sessions, which I know is going to be very important to you. So check out the website, learn more about it. Guys, thanks for being here. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care.